Adewale was the kind of man people greeted without thinking twice. By dawn, when the streets of Ojodu were still yawning awake, his old Toyota Corolla would already be on the road. The car was battered, its yellow paint peeling under the sun, but it was reliable enough to carry passengers from Baga to Ikeja, Ojota, or Maryland. "Driver, how much to Ikeja?" a market woman would shout, balancing a basket of tomatoes on her head. 500, madam. "Enter quick before traffic builds," Adewale would answer, voice calm, respectful. The regulars knew him as a patient driver. He didn't insult passengers, didn't play deafening music, and didn't try to cheat on fares. To the apprentices at the bus stop, he was Baba Taxi. Even the Okada riders called him chairman, a small sign of respect. In a city where tempers flared like the afternoon sun, Adewale's calmness stood out. But if anyone looked closely, they might have noticed things that didn't add up. Adewale never worked late shifts, no matter how much passengers begged. "Driver, carry me to Ajij, I go pay double," some would plead at nightfall. His answer was always the same: "I don't drive after dark. My eyes they worry me." People accepted it. After all, Lagos was a city of secrets, and no one liked too many questions. Lagos was not kind to men like Adewale. His earnings from the taxi barely covered his expenses. Fuel prices rose every other week, traffic swallowed hours that could have been spent carrying more passengers, and police or last-mile officials always demanded something for the weekend. By evening, when he parked the car in a corner near his one-room apartment in Ojodu, Adewale would sit quietly, staring at the ceiling fan that barely worked. He had a wife, Yetunde, and 2 children who attended a modest primary school. School fees, rent, food, hospital bills, they all chased him like creditors at the bus stop. Yetunde sometimes complained. "Well, this taxi work cannot carry us far. Look at the neighbors, see how their husbands are making money from contracts or politics. We too must find a way." Adewale would sigh, wipe his face with a rag, and "Mama, God will provide." But deep inside, he knew God had been silent for too long. Despite his struggles, Adewale had the image of a decent man. He helped elders cross the busy Ojodo road, gave apprentices free rides when they had no fare, and never missed church on Sundays. The pastor often used him as an example during sermons. "Look at Brother Adewale, faithful in little things." Children liked him too. They would wave whenever his taxi passed, and he would honk playfully in response. If a stranger asked around, they would hear the same words: "That man is good, hardworking. He minds his business." But Lagos has a way of hiding truths behind smiles. People only saw what Adewale allowed them to see. When dusk fell and the orange glow faded over 3rd Mainland Bridge, Adewale's life shifted. He would leave his car parked neatly in the compound, tell Yetunde he was visiting a cousin in Ikeja, and disappear into the night. Neighbors found it odd that a man who claimed his eyes troubled him in darkness could still move around so freely. But gossip never grew into confrontation. Everyone had their hustle, everyone had their secrets. Sometimes, when Adewale returned late, his clothes carried the smell of dust and sweat, and his eyes held a hardness that didn't belong to the humble taxi driver they knew. Yetunde, though curious, learned not to ask questions. Lagos women understood the unspoken rule: if your husband is bringing something home, you close your eyes to how he got it. An old man in the neighborhood once said, "A man who wears 2 faces cannot hide forever. One day, the sun will meet the moon." At the time, people laughed, thinking he was just muttering. But his words would later echo like a prophecy. For now, Adewale was still safe. By day, he was the taxi driver everyone trusted. By night, he was something else, something darker that no one in Ojodu could imagine. The streets whispered already, though not loudly enough. Stories of armed robberies on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway filled evening news reports. Victims spoke of robbers who seemed to know traffic patterns too well, who moved like drivers that understood the roads. The details were chilling, but no one connected them to Baba Taxi of Ojodu. Not yet. By midnight, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was a different world. The chaos of the day, the endless honking, shouting hawkers, and choking fumes, gave way to eerie silence broken only by the occasional sound of trucks groaning past. Most motorists avoided the road at night, but those who dared were easy targets. This was Adewale's hunting ground. When Adewale slipped out of his compound at night, he was no longer Baba Taxi. The neat shirt he wore in the day was replaced by dark jeans, a black hoodie, and a cap pulled low over his forehead. In a small bag, he carried a locally made pistol, wrapped in cloth. He would meet two other men under the bridge near Ojota, Sonkami and Dare. Both were younger, rougher, already marked by the streets. Sonkami had scars across his cheek from a failed robbery years back. Dare, wary and restless, always chewed gum like it was keeping him alive. To them, Adewale was Baba, not out of respect but because he was older and calmer than the rest. He knew the roads better than anyone else. He knew the police checkpoints, the shortcuts, the exact spots where street lights had stopped working. Calm down. Bring your bag. Quick, quick, quick. Phone, wallet, now. In less than 3 minutes, the work would be done. Sometimes they took cash, sometimes phones and laptops they could sell later in Computer Village. Occasionally, they hijacked cars, driving them into hidden spots where they were stripped and sold part by part. Each time Adewale held the pistol, his heart raced. He hated the way some victims begged, hands trembling, voices cracking. Please, my children's school fees are inside this bag. Sometimes he let them keep small things, but more often than not, the gang pressured him to be ruthless. Baba, leave story, Sonkami would snap. If we start pitying them, we go house empty-handed. And so Adewale hardened himself. By dawn, when he returned home with wads of cash hidden in his bag, Yeton would smile faintly, knowing better than to ask where the money came from. The rent was paid on time. The children's school fees stopped being a problem. Neighbors whispered about his luck. As months passed, the robberies increased. Newspapers carried the stories, armed robbers strike again on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Victims described masked men, always striking with precision. They moved like people who knew the road too well. At beer parlors in Ojodu, men debated the matter. Those robbers no be ordinary, one man argued. Them sabi this road pass police. True, another replied, shaking his head. Maybe not some of these drivers. Who else go know the checkpoints like that? Sometimes, Adewale sat quietly at a corner table, sipping his drink, listening to the suspicion circle dangerously close. He never spoke. He never argued. He just smiled faintly, like a man who had nothing to hide. But inside, fear gnawed at him. The double life began to eat at Adewale. In the day, passengers laughed in his taxi, sharing stories of their struggles and victories. He nodded, smiled, even offered advice. At night, he terrified those same kinds of people, pressing a gun to their heads, snatching away the little they had. The contradiction tore at him. Sometimes, after a robbery, he sat awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling fan that never spun fast enough, his chest heavy with guilt. Yet when he thought of his children's school uniforms, neatly ironed and free of shame, the guilt dulled. When Yeton no longer compared him bitterly with neighbors, he convinced himself it was worth it. But Lagos has a way of catching up with men who try to outsmart both day and night. One evening, Adewale carried 2 passengers from Baga to Maryland. They were discussing the latest robbery on the expressway. Those robbers are smart, one said. They even know when Lasma people go sleep. Obio, the other replied. Sometimes I wonder if not one of these taxi drivers they do am. Who else knows the road this well? Adewale's grip on the steering tightened. He forced a laugh, pretending to find the comments ridiculous. But when he dropped them off, sweat had gathered under his shirt despite the car's half-broken AC. The whisper of suspicion was growing louder. One night, the gang attempted something bigger. Instead of small cars, they targeted a luxury SUV heading toward Ibadan. It looked promising, tinted windows, shiny rims, the kind of car owned by wealthy businessmen. The ambush went smoothly at first. The SUV slowed for their fake breakdown. Sonkami waved the pistol, shouting orders. But when the driver stepped out, things shifted. He was calm, too calm. Then, from nowhere, torchlights flared. Shouts erupted, "Police! Stop there!" It was a trap. Adewale's chest tightened. He fired a warning shot into the air as chaos broke out. Dare bolted into the bush. Sonkami exchanged shots with the officers. Adewale ran too, but his mind raced with one bitter truth: the double life was closing in. The night of the failed ambush changed everything. For the first time, Adewale felt the weight of the law breathing down his neck. He had escaped into the bush with his pistol still in hand, stumbling over roots and cutting his skin on thorns. By the time he made it back to Ojodu, it was almost dawn. When Yeton opened the door, she gasped at the sight of him, clothes torn, face scratched, eyes wide. "What happened to you?" she whispered. "Nothing," Adewale snapped, brushing past her. "I fell on the road." But she knew better. She had always known. That night, as he washed the dirt off his body, Yeton sat on the bed in silence. For the first time, she looked at her husband with fear. News spread quickly. The papers carried the headline, "Police for a robbery attempt on expressway, gun escapes with injuries." The radio host discussed it all morning, warning motorists to stay vigilant. At the Baga taxi park, drivers debated the story like it was a football match. Dem say one of the robbers be older man wey sabi the road well. E fit even be person wey dey work among us so. Laughter followed, but it was nervous laughter. Everyone knew Lagos was full of men who lived double lives. Adewale kept his head low, walking his taxi like nothing had happened. But he felt the eyes on him. He imagined suspicion in every glance, every careless joke. Even his passengers' conversations felt like warnings meant for him. The police weren't sleeping. Weeks after the failed ambush, they raided hideouts along the expressway. Sonkami was caught first. Word spread that he had been beaten badly, that he was talking. "Boba, we are finished," Dare whispered one night, when they met briefly near a mechanic workshop. "Sonkami will mention our names." Adewale clenched his fist. "Keep calm. Don't meet me again until I call you." But it was too late. The net was closing. It was a humid Thursday evening when Adewale's world collapsed. He had just dropped off passengers at Ikeja when he noticed a white Hilux truck following his taxi. His chest tightened. He tried to convince himself it was nothing, but at the next junction, the Hilux blocked his path. Armed policemen poured out, guns raised. "Driver, don't move." The scene was over in seconds. Passers-by stopped to watch, whispering in shock as the man they called Boba Taxi was dragged out, handcuffed, and shoved into the back of the truck. By nightfall, the news had spread across Ojodu like wildfire. Adewale, the respected taxi driver, was an armed robber. At the police station, the truth spilled out. Sonkami had indeed named him. Victims were brought in, and some pointed at him. "Yes, that's the man. I remember his voice. He was the one holding the gun." Adewale sat in silence, eyes fixed on the floor. He wanted to deny it, to protest his innocence, but the weight of evidence was too heavy. The pistol was found in his home during a search. His wife wept bitterly, insisting she didn't know, but the neighbors shook their heads. Oh, so this is what he was hiding. No wonder he never worked at night. The quiet ones are the most dangerous. The betrayal cut deep. People who once respected him now looked at him like filth. The children in the neighborhood, who used to wave at his taxi, now pointed at him with fear. Yeton visited him once at the station. She sat across the bars, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. "Why, well," she asked softly. "Why did you do this to us?" Adewale had no answer. All the justifications he used to tell himself, school fees, rent, survival, crumbled in that moment. He realized the truth: it wasn't just poverty that pushed him, it was greed, impatience, the hunger to live beyond what his taxi could provide. He lowered his head, unable to meet her eyes. That was the last time she came. The trial moved quickly. In Lagos, armed robbery carried the weight of death or life imprisonment. The newspapers printed his picture under bold headlines: "Taxi driver turns armed robber." He became a cautionary tale, an example pastors and teachers used to warn others. In prison, Adewale replayed his choices endlessly. He thought of the faces of those he had robbed, the fear in their voices. He thought of his children, who would now grow up with the shame of his name. He thought of the life he could have lived if he had simply endured the hardship honestly. One night, lying on the hard prison bed, he whispered to himself, "A man cannot serve two masters. The night will always betray the day." In Ojodu, life moved on. New taxi drivers filled the road. Passengers still argued about fares, traffic still clogged Baga every morning, and the city still pulsed with its endless hustle. But whenever the story of Adewale came up, elders shook their heads and repeated the same lesson. In Lagos, no matter how fast you run, your shadow will catch you. The man who wears two faces will one day lose both. And so the tale of the taxi driver who was also a robber became another chapter in the unwritten history of the city, a reminder that crime may feed the stomach for a season, but it always starves the soul in the end.